Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, back again. I actually thought yesterday, I was like, every time I'm like, oh, we're doing back to back. It's like, I've been having recorded a podcast or released a podcast in ages. Like, what's been going on? I'm Ben Canning.
We did it right this time. I'm Dave Kennedy.
Yeah. And this is Hacking Your Health. So what's going on? How's your weekend?
Weekend was good, man. I decided for some stupid reason to do what's called a dry triathlon. And so, you know, I have my normal kind of routines that I do, which I'm very comfortable with. But one of the trainers at Orange Theory was, you know, like, why isn't Dave doing this and all this other stuff? So, of course, you know, I'm not competitive at all when it comes to this. So I decided to go and do a dry triathlon, which consists of a 2,000-meter row. It's like a 300 rep weight room block. So you're doing like everything from like burpees, push-ups, you know, split squats, those types of things. You do that quick, and then you got to do a 5K run. So I did that on Sunday, and I was actually kind of mad because like the front desk lady told me it was going to be at 6:45. So I woke up at like 5 in the morning to make sure I was all ready to go. And I pull in the parking lot at 6:45. Ain't nobody there. You know, there's nobody there. I'm like, I look at my thing, and it says 7:30. I'm like, so I literally took a nap in my car right before I did this triathlon. But no, it went really good. Rocked it. Came in first, which is awesome. So I was able to see. I did the 2,000-meter row in like 6 minutes 33 seconds, I think, and then the gym was probably like around 8 to 9 minutes, and then the run I did in 18 something minutes. So it was really good. You know, good accomplishment. But I'll tell you something. So I did that. I got done at, say, like, you know, after everybody, you wait there till everybody finishes, and you kind of cheer everybody on and everything else, and then I think it was like 8:30. The rest of the day, man, I was wrecked. I must have taken like 3 naps. I was at my kid's basketball game. I think I fell asleep once. I was just trying to pound like anything I could from like a carb perspective to give me some energy. It was not helping at all. I was wrecked.
Yeah, you do not do well with getting up early, especially when you have to get up early. And I think it's probably the first time I've heard of a pre-workout nap.
Yeah. It helped out, though. I was literally just put the thing down. I was sleeping in the parking lot, set my timer for 7:15, woke up, walked in, and did a dry triathlon. So,
well, I mean, more power to you. It's not something that I would ever be stupid enough to agree to do.
Yeah, that's good. Well, how was your weekend? You didn't do a dry triathlon?
No, I didn't. Not this weekend. I'm saving myself for doing the charity 5K, actually, for next week. I was laughing during the week because in my head I was like, okay, for full disclosure for anybody who's listening, I do not run at all. I'm not very good at it. I don't enjoy doing it. Like, it's just not for me. So anyway, long story short, we're doing a charity 5K for Innocent Lives Foundation on Saturday. I was like, right, I need to do some sort of training for it. Like, I need to be able to do it. And it got to about 3 weeks out, and I was like, if I start running now, I'm going to hate it so much that I'm going to put myself off. So I'm just going to turn up on the day and hope that I can make it to the end. But no cardio this weekend. Save myself for next weekend. And my body was just beat up yesterday from the power building. I thought I'd better listen to it and not put myself in any sort of jeopardized position to wreck myself before I beat you in the 500-pound deadlift.
Dude, I'll tell you that. Well, first of all, you're not beating me at the 500-pound deadlift. I got my full America with an eagle romper ready to go to wear for my 505-pound try on that one. But I'll tell you, you know, when I first started the program, I was kind of iffy on it. I'm like, I don't know about this. But and you start to go through it, and you realize how much volume you're doing with the warm-up sets, and when you start to do the rest of them, and like everything from like the pause deadlifts and things like that, it's actually I'm really enjoying it, and it is definitely hit. It's very different than what I'm used to. It's very different than what I normally would have done, and you know, it's a nice different, group, and I'm definitely sore, definitely feeling it, definitely feel strong. I think it's doing its intended thing. So I'm so far so good on mine too. But I agree, man. Yesterday was my day off when I ran the dry triathlon. But today I'm looking forward to hitting the weights again. I got my squat machine built this weekend as well. So that only took, listen, Rogue Fitness is phenomenal. Like, they make the best equipment, over-engineered steel. It's powder coated. They're amazing pieces of equipment. The instructions were made by Satan himself. There's no question about it. Like, you literally need to be like a scientific engineer or something like that to put these things together. I must have rebuilt that thing 15 times to get to the point to where, like, I got it all together. I'm like, it's done. And then the thing's wobbling back and forth. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I had to take like a half of it apart again and then basically adjust the thing so they can go down one notch. It was such a nightmare. It literally took me 8 hours. And I literally have had nightmares about assembling Rogue equipment. That reverse donkey took me 11 hours. For the reverse,
you need to stop buying gym equipment then.
But
if Rogue, if you're listening, if Rogue are listening, if anybody from Rogue's listening, we adore you, and we will absolutely have an affiliate link, no problem at all, as long as it comes with someone to build it.
Yeah, I was on the phone with one of the guys because they don't tell you that they have one of the pieces assembled. So for like an hour and a half, I'm looking for these two parts that aren't there. I'm like going through boxes, I'm going through trash cans, I'm looking everywhere. And you look on the tutorials online and YouTube, it shows like, these guys getting this box and it's a separate piece. Well, they don't tell you that they've, changed the orders and they just, now attach it to it automatically. So I'm on the phone with Rogue and I'm going through everything and finally figure it out that it's attached to the thing. I'm like, hey man, any chance, you guys are out of Columbus, right? And he's like, yeah, we're out of Columbus. I'm like, any chance you come here and help me build this thing? And so he got a good kick out of it, but, I'm glad it's built. I'm not ordering any more equipment anytime soon, at least till next week. And I'm done building stuff. But I'm looking forward to that squat machine. It's really nice. It takes all the strain off of your lower back, which is my problematic area, and it gets a really good focus and isolation on the quad. So I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, cool, perfect. Right, so we're going to continue off our last podcast on nutrition. I think this time around we probably want to give some more like actual real life actionable tips in terms of how to make adjustments, how to structure your food throughout the day, what different sort of foods to eat, and actually sort of give a bit of advice in terms of like how you can actually go and do this without us just talking about macros and talking about, numbers.
Yep. And, what's really cool about all this is that, nutrition, I mean, again, we're not nutritionists. We're not claiming to be nutritionists. These are foods that are healthy and proteins and carbohydrates. And what we start talking about macronutrients and micronutrients, these are things that you can eat on a regular basis that give you a fuller feeling, as well as keep you fuller for longer. Right. And that's, you look at some of the diets, and I know I'm not supposed to use that word here, but, the reason why keto kind of works, for some folks. By the way, there's a lot of long-term studies in that just recently came out about the detrimental health impacts of keto. So be careful if you're doing it long-term.
Not even that. It's the detrimental health implications, but also how much abuse you will take because people will know that you do keto. So that I think in itself is worse.
Well, listen, hey, whatever we can try to do, I guess, to get us better. But the thing with keto is, if you look at the breakdown between calories, between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, fat inherently has more calories per gram of fat versus carbohydrates and protein. So, the more fat you eat, you're actually eating more calories, but you feel fuller. So the theory behind keto is, you're putting yourself into ketosis, which, causes your body to convert fats to energy. For fat burning because you don't have carbohydrates as a source of energy, and you're burning all this fat. Well, with keto, it's still calories in versus calories out. So a lot of people don't lose weight off of keto because they're still eating too many calories, and it's easy to do if you're eating so much fat. So when we talk about macronutrients, and Ben could go way better than I can on this, but macronutrients are really three key categories, right? We're talking about carbohydrates, your energy, fats, really kind of the oil for your body and everything else that kind of keeps it going. You need fat. Fat's not is good, but it's not good in high quantities. because it has an unlimited store, so you can continuously add it on, obviously continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then protein, which is what's used, for protein synthesis, which your body breaks down into amino acids, which allows you to then, build muscle. So those are the three things that we're going to be focusing on and talking about. How do you structure food in a way that allows you to get the things that you need for your body in order to accomplish the goals you want to. And before we get into it, I just want to give a shout out to an individual in the security industry. His name is David Maynard. And David reached out to me about a month and a half ago, just saying, hey, I'm looking for some advice. What do you think? And I sat down, I called him on the phone, talked to him for a bit. He read my Medium post on hacking your health and kind of what I do from a nutritional perspective and everything else. And he's lost 26 pounds in a month, just going off of that.
I think I saw you liked it on Twitter. Absolutely amazing.
Isn't that incredible?
He's actually just taken control, took your advice, and actually just went and done it.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And, everybody's like, well, what did you do? And I loved his response back. He said, I didn't diet. I'm not dieting. I'm literally counting my calories, keeping myself in a deficit, focusing more on protein-centric goals, and I'm actually exercising and doing the right things. I'm doing weight training. I'm like, dude, you literally read and followed what you're supposed to do. That's it. That is literally it. You got it. And I'm just so happy to see his progress, and others too, that have gone through this. But when we look at this, it's literally, if we talked about this in the mindset thing as well. You'll see it as a general theme. But listen, this is calories in versus calories out. Make the conscious decision to count calories today is the first thing you do. Nutrition and getting, your food down pat and what you eat is the first thing you should do.
Agree. And just to sort of touch on, I think I want to try and give a simple explanation of each macro so people have an understanding of it. Protein and fats are essential macros, and carbohydrates are non-essential, as in your body can survive without them. So that's why there's so many diets that will just take them out, and that's why it's easy to get rid of. Protein, if you think about it in terms of our muscle tissues are made up of protein, so that is why it's essential. Fats are essential mainly for hormone production and keeping your shit together, keeping your hormones balanced. And carbohydrates, although they're not essential, they're the body's main and most readily available energy source. And that's probably the easiest way that I can explain them without trying to get super in depth with them. As you know, and as I've said before, calories are always the main focus, protein's the next, and fats and carbs can be made up in whatever way that they want. And I think just to sort of reiterate the point, not dieting is probably the key, because you don't have that restriction. You don't need to, overly complicate it. And I think that's probably what the majority of people do. They overly complicate it. And then what happens is, whenever they realize it's complicated or whenever something throws them off, they just absolutely lose their mind and they go back to square one. Whereas if you have a sort of plan to just count your calories and get a better understanding of food, what it's made up of, and how you can manage it better, then that's going to set you up long-term for success. And just to sort of touch on what you were saying about the fats as well, this is an interesting one that we could probably touch on. Protein and carbs are 4 calories per gram. Fats are 9 calories per gram. So you can see how it would be easy to overconsume calories by eating lots of fats, because they're over twice as many calories per gram. With that being said, they do play a part whenever we're trying to increase calories. So I would always look at that, whenever you're going to come to me in a couple of weeks, whenever I've put your calories to over 4,000 calories, you're like, look, I just can't get it in. I will start to recommend things that are higher in fats. So whether it's, nut butter or, more oils or coconut oil or things like that, that are low volume but high calorie, that will allow you to get your calories in the way up. The flip side of that is, on the way down, if we start to take those things out. So say, for example, I tell you to add some oil to your cooking, 15 milliliters of oil or whatever it is to your cooking. You'll not notice that in terms of the food volume, but it will give you that, maybe 120, 130 calories on the way up. The flip side of that is, when we start to take it back down and you take that out, you'll not notice it. So it's not like missing a big meal or missing a big part of your meal on the way up or on the way down. So that's one thing that I'll always try and do whenever we get to the stage that we're pushing calories on the way up. And the flip side on the way down, do you know what I mean? I'm not just going to talk about muscle building or fat loss. I would always recommend on the way up that you try and structure a lot of your meals around low volume, high calorie, and the flip side on the way down, low calorie, high volume. And that's sort of how I would look at it on either side.
Yeah, I want to emphasize one thing well, first of all, I learn something new every time I talk to Ben, which is this is unshared. This is a journey for everybody, right? We're always learning, we're always doing things new, but I've never been to a position where I'm eating 3,500 calories. At least I probably have, obviously, because I was, morbidly obese. But I've never been in a position where I understand that I'm eating 3,500 calories a week, and I'm going to be pushing 4,000 calories as we go along. In fact, just yesterday after the triathlon, what's nice about having like a trainer like Ben is I can send him pictures of like days where I'm feeling awesome, and I send him a picture. I'm like, hey, dude, look at my abs popping. And he's like, that's awesome, man. What's your weight at and everything else. And, it's crazy, but I'm getting to a point now where 3,500 calories is a lot of freaking food. I mean, it's a lot of food. I mean, you should see when I go to the grocery store how much protein-centric food I have in the thing. I mean, I got like 8 big things of Greek yogurt. I got, like 4 things of milk. I got, all this stuff and a whole bunch of carbs too. Carbs are great. But I think I actually broke 400 grams of carbs yesterday, by the way, and still within my macro content and hitting 250 grams of protein. So it was like the best of all worlds. My fat was down, I think, to like 40 grams. So it was perfect. And I had, by the way, I had a cake, which, was not a cake, a cookie thing for, we had some friends over, but all within my calorie content. So it was perfect. So, but one of the things that I think is important to note about what Ben said is that, the reason why diets fail is they're very difficult to stick to long term, right? So you have these ebbs and flows where you're kind of on the diet, you're off the diet, you're on the diet, you're off the diet, then you're off the diet, right? And there's no framework for you to really control that unregulated, not off of that type of diet. That's why, whenever I would do a diet, for example, and I would, I remember I was doing Insanity with Shaun T, the Beachbody stuff. I was working out 5 days a week because, cardio is the way to go to lose weight, right? Which we learned is not necessarily the facts. And, I wasn't controlling my eating and everything else. I would, lose maybe 10, 15, 20 pounds, then I'd gain 20, 30 pounds back. What we're talking about nutrition and what we're talking about from a calorie counting perspective are tools that are necessary for you to adopt in order to be successful long term. And it just works because you understand what you're eating, you understand what you're putting in your body, you understand the breakdowns. And so getting into breakdowns, you might be thinking, well, where do I start from a macronutrient perspective? When we talked about the last podcast is understanding first what your total daily energy expenditure is. So if you didn't listen to the last podcast episode, I'd heavily recommend it. Go to, calculator.net, look up your total daily energy expenditure. And then if you want to lose weight, you want to be in a small deficit, anywhere between, I would say, 200 to 300, Ben? Is that typical where you'd start?
Go percentage based. I would do maybe 10 to 15% of your calories, because if you have more allowance for calories, then the 200 to 300 might not cut it. Or if if you're a smaller person and you have less amount of calories, the 200 to 300 could be 25, 30%. So I would go 10 to 15% based on what it gives you as a number. And I linked everything that we talked about in the last podcast. I linked in the show notes the calculator.net and whatever else, and the protein ad. It's the Taco Bell protein ad.
Protein. My kids love that. Protein. I like protein.
But yes, about 10 to 15%. I would say anything more than that is I would say it's not too big, but it wouldn't be something you could do long term that would be sustainable. And I think that you need to sort of build it around something that's sustainable long term. Yeah,
and so. When you take that, and it's the same thing for gaining weight too. Ben, would you recommend 10 to 15% surplus if you want to gain weight?
Yeah, I would start with 10%. And I think this is something that I've realized, and you've maybe heard me talk about it in the group call a couple of times. Whenever we get to the stage that we start to push calories, it's almost like you feel like, well, people in general, and I have been a victim of this as well, like you feel like you've got this free pass because you're like, oh, I've got all these calories. Like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go and do whatever I want. Whereas I almost feel like you need to be as strict, if not more strict, with the margins on either side, because if you're going to a place where you're starting to push calories and bring calories up, if you start to go beyond that too quickly, your body won't be able to process and handle it quick enough, and you'll end up adding too much body fat tissue too quickly, which is going to jeopardize, number one, the length of time that you can be in that sort of muscle building phase, but also this potential shit show that you're going to have to deal with on the way back down to try and lose all the extra body fat. So I would definitely say maybe start with 10% and very, very gradually bring it up on the way up, and monitor, waist measurements, photos, body fat levels in terms of like visually. And then, like I say, gradually bring it up. I think we do maybe 100 calories per day, per week, maximum, absolute maximum. And it doesn't need to be something you increase every single week just for the sake of increasing it.
Yeah, and you would know, Ben, because I saw the picture of you though, at the club or whatever with your drinks when you were super young, and you're a rail, you're tiny,
yeah.
And to what you've accomplished now, and I think that's the thing is, this is a journey either way, whether you're skinny or you're overweight, it's a gradual progression. That's why when people are like, oh, hey, just eat 300 calories a day and you're gonna lose all the weight. Well, that's not sustainable. 10 to 15%, as Ben had said, and do it gradually and slowly over time. Adjust, accordingly based on how your body's responding to things. And same thing going up. When I first started with Ben, my calories, I think, were at like 2,100 or 2,200 or something like that. And we went down a little bit and then we went up, because I was, at a position where we were building muscle. And I was actually looking at a thing from, there was Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor, who I envy his arms. I want the Thor arms so bad.
You're going for the Thor stunt double. That's why we've been training.
That's right. I got the hammer right here whenever he's ready. I got the hammer right here whenever he's ready. But for the Thor arms, what his trainer said was, if you're looking to look like Chris Hemsworth, which, I think that would be an awesome goal to have someday. But
I'm here for it.
But he said you need to be in a caloric surplus. He's like, you need to ensure that you're eating enough food, that your body has enough food to be able to put on that muscle, but to do it gradually and slowly, so that you're not having a massive byproduct of fat, right? And that's where a lot of, I think, people that are trying to just put on bulk muscle really kind of fail at, is they go to 6,000 calories, 7,000 calories, and they're just putting on all this fat with the intention of someday shredding that, which if you're getting into a bulking and cutting phase, you're going to lose a lot of that muscle as you're cutting, especially if you do a drastic cut like you had done before. So it's this gradual of just keeping a little bit of a surplus so that you don't put on a substantial amount of byproduct, but giving your muscles and your body enough nutrients to be able to maximize growth of those muscles. And again, remember, if you're overweight and you're looking to lose weight, you want to be able to do weight training, because it's going to increase your calories. It's going to make you look better. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. It's going to increase your metabolism. It's going to increase your strength and agility, and it's going to make you look better and confidence in yourself. So weight training is extremely important, and it's just not mentioned enough. Like, you literally can do no cardio, do weight training, be in a caloric deficit, and be fantastic. That's literally. Now, again, I think you should do cardio. I think it's fun for me. I enjoy it. It's good for your heart and everything else. But literally, or hell, you can even take out weight training and just do caloric deficit and lose the weight, right?
Yeah. I think, again, it just comes down to the overcomplication of everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, weight training for me will always be something that I would recommend, because I have felt and lived the benefits. Again, obviously it's different for me because I started as a very skinny person. That photo, honestly.
Hey.
But yeah, I started as very skinny. I actually want to touch on, I don't know if I've ever told you the story about whenever I was in like my first ever muscle building phase. I remember it clear as day that my post-workout meal, it was like my one post-workout meal as it stood by itself was 2,500 calories for the meal.
Oh my gosh.
It was 250 grams of chicken, so that's raw weight of chicken. It was, I don't know if you have over there like the microwavable packs of rice, so they're like little pouches. Yeah. So two of those jasmine rice, so 250 grams of chicken, 2 microwavable packets of jasmine rice, 2 Pop-Tarts, 2 bagels cut with, I think it was 50 grams of jam and a banana. It literally took me 50 minutes to eat it from start to finish. And you can imagine, like, after quite a heavy session, sitting down to eat that is not in any way, shape or form pleasant. No. But the lesson was learned that you don't need to do it that way. So yeah, it's obviously different for me because I came from a very skinny place and I always wanted to well, truth be told, I always wanted to be heavier. It was never a case of being bigger, and I learned my lesson on that one as well. But yeah, with the calories and stuff, you know, either way, number one, you don't need to complicate it. But number two, as long as you have a plan and you're sort of making small adjustments on the way up or on the way down, it should be sustainable. I don't in any way really like the term bulking, because I feel like it brings a lot of negativity. And it's like you said, people just like, I just imagine someone eating like, you know, 2 20-inch pizzas being like, oh, I'm bulking. And I'm like, okay, right, you maybe in the 6 months that you've been bulking have put on 40 pounds, but it's maybe like 2.5 pounds of muscle that you're going to have to like go from that one extreme right down to the other. And there's no need to do it. Like, as we're doing, like, you're living proof of we're actually doing it right now, that you're still visibly lean. Your strength is going up, your calories are going up, and we're building muscle as we go through. Like, your measurements, I laugh every week. I'm like, how can your waist continue to get smaller and your biceps, chest, shoulders, quads, calves all get bigger? Like, what is actually going on here? But it's just the science of it, and we've just absolutely nailed like where we're at in terms of the calories and the output perspective. And you know, I can't fault it enough, or I can't fault it at all. But yeah, I think, you know, it's the small increments that we've done over time, rather than me just deciding 4 months ago, okay, right, well, we're going to go from, you know, 2,200 calories to 4,000 calories. We'll definitely put on weight then. We would have, but you would have looked entirely different.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, you know, I and this is a trust factor with me too on the whole mindset front, which is, you know, if you would have told me I was eating 3,500 calories a year ago, I would have told you you're effing crazy, and I would have canceled my membership. And because I wouldn't have trusted myself of being able to handle 3,500 calories, right? You mentioned Pop-Tarts. I had a Pop-Tart the other day, and I did not feel guilty. I'm like, it's perfectly with, you know, I'm like, listen, I'm crashing here. I need some simple and complex carbohydrates like right now. Like I need the energy to do it, and it's within my calorie content to go and do it. So I did it, right? And there is some things, obviously, with processed or refined sugars that, you know, you shouldn't sit there and overload on. It's not great for you. But, you know, immediate, you know, quick sugars, it's not, you know, it's all in consumption of quantity, right? If you're doing too much of anything, alcohol, whatever, it becomes a problem. But, you know, one thing I remember asking you, I'm like, listen, you know, this is probably 6 months ago or so. I'm like, Ben, let's do a hard cut. Like, I'm going to do like a hard cut, like 1,500 calories, just to see if I could do it. And I think your exact words in the check-in were, "You're an effing idiot" or something like that. It's something to that effect, right? You know, it's like first of all, you know, and you explain, you're like, listen, you know, what'll happen is you're gonna, one, lose some of the muscle that you've built, you know, and second, when you cut that much, you're going to be kind of upset with yourself of how much muscle you may not have been able to get to yet because of that cut. And so he's like, let's just do it gradually, slowly go up, and you know, everything, like as you mentioned, my waist is going down, my muscles are growing, my measurements are up, you know, and where they need to be. You know, my weight is just either steady or gradually increasing slowly over time as I gain more and more muscle. So, you know, it literally is a journey one way or the other, based on what you're eating. And those small increments are really important to know. It's not extremes one way or the other. If you didn't lose a pound or two 1 week, don't shave off 500 calories. Maybe adjust 100 calories. Remember, that's 7 days, 100 calories, right? That's 700 calories now that you're not eating. That's a big difference, you know, spanned over time. And let that sit in for a week or two to see how your body adjusts to it, right? And a lot of times it's undigested foods or, you know, bowel issues, you know, things like that. I remember when I first started eating more higher protein diets, I'm like, Ben, I just gained freaking 10 pounds in a week. He's like, you didn't gain 10 pounds. Your body doesn't know how to adjust to 200 grams of protein. You know, it's just, you know, give yourself some time for your body to adjust to it, to get used to it. And then from there, start to look at the deviations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that is something that is, I think there's no memo in that once you get to a certain stage of your body or with your protein, that your body's just like, not happening. I think I remember doing that as well. So whenever Callum used to do mine, he used to basically just set me a per meal protein goal. So it was like 40 grams of protein. And he was like, right, we need to take this up to 50 grams of protein across 5 or 6 meals. That was a lot. And my body was just like, nah, this isn't happening. So I had to take it back down to 40. But again, you know, it's a trial and error thing. Do you know what I mean? Like with anything. I think it's just, you know, I now know that there is a limit to how much protein my body can handle, and I'm well aware of that. Like, I don't need to go to super high amounts. Like, if I can get that sort of 200 to 250 gram mark, it's more than enough. But I think the main thing about what we've done is we've taken the time both ways, and the sort of, like you talking about the mini cut there, or the extreme cut, it can be done, and yes, you know, it would get you from A to B, but I think the biggest mistake that I have made, or the biggest regret that I have made in my own training, is not actually committing to a long-term gaining phase. Like, you know, I'm talking like 6 months to a year or more. If I had have done that a couple of years ago, I would be much bigger than I am now and not have to continue to go through this. But what would happen would be I would get 3 or 4 or 5 months into it and I'd be like, oh, I don't have a six-pack anymore, like I need to cut here. And then you're back down. So you're this like up calories, down calories, up calories, down calories. Whereas if I just had have sucked it up for a while and stayed relatively lean, like when I said I didn't have a six-pack, I wasn't totally shredded. I probably had like 4.5 abs because I don't really carry body fat on my front, thankfully. But if I had committed to that long term the first time around, I would have been in a much better position now. Like I would have had a lot more muscle mass than I do, but it was a sort of vanity metric more than being like, right, well, what am I actually trying to achieve long term here? And that's sort of, again, my experience being able to relay that to you, being like, we can do it, but you may regret it because we're in a place that we're pushing food, we're pushing strength, we're building muscle. Let's really commit to that until the end of the year. And I think just the way that we sort of mapped it out coming to the end of this power building phase, really pushing calories, and then we'll sort of reevaluate on the flip side of that. I think, number one, I'm excited to see where we get with the calories, but number two, I'm excited to see, you know, how much muscle we've actually built whenever we start to bring it back down again.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part about stuff like this, is that, you know, it's not really even experimenting with our body. It's having long-term vision of what we want to accomplish in both of our bodies, and putting the things in place to get there. So, you know, we talked about surplus and deficits. You know, how do you even start, I guess, with macronutrients and getting a baseline? So now you know your total daily energy expenditure. You've calculated it with calculator.net. You're going to go in a deficit of, let's just say, you know, 5 to 10% or 10 to 15%, depending on what you're comfortable with. You know, what I would generally recommend, and Ben, feel free to, combat that or agree or whatever. But, you know, typically what you're looking at to do is there's a metrics used for muscle mass of what your body needs in order to ensure that you have enough protein throughout the day in order to build muscle at a optimal rate, what we call protein synthesis. Now, there's a recent study that came out. If you listen to the Huberman Labs podcast, obviously I got to get him on here. On the Huberman Labs podcast, protein synthesis is most optimal in the morning timeframes now, apparently. So a lot of people would be drinking a lot of protein at night. Turns out, and again, not saying you shouldn't drink protein at night, but turns out that protein synthesis is most optimal in the morning levels when your overall human base clock that you have internally is between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. typically for protein intake. So it'd be good to get a good protein centric meal in the morning. I usually do a combination of protein and carbohydrates for energy, depending on what I'm doing. But the general barometer for how many grams of protein you should be getting a day is 1 gram of protein per pound. However, if you're already substantially overweight, that doesn't mean you should be getting 300 grams of protein. So if you weigh 300, it doesn't mean get 300 grams of protein. A good measurement there would be to get 1 gram of protein or 1.2 grams of protein per centimeter of height. That is generally the recommended range if you're overweight to calculate based off of height, and that should give you a good baseline of how much protein you should really be getting a day in order to ensure that you're maximizing growth and muscle. And breaking down your macronutrients appropriately. So once you have your protein measurements, then you start to look at, well, how does my body feel with fats and carbohydrates, right? And then breaking that down into your total daily energy expenditure calorie intake that you're on from a surplus perspective. So for me personally, I'm on 3,500 calories. I've actually dropped my percentage per day of protein down because my calories are so high. So I'm at the 30 to 35% general of overall 100% of how many I have a day for protein. So I'm trying to get into the between 200 and 250 grams of protein per day. And then, I basically break up carbohydrates and fats, being more centric on carbohydrates for energy. So my daily intake for 3,500 calories is going to be, 200, 250 grams of protein, anywhere between 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates, and anywhere between 40 to 100 grams of fat per day, typically is my breakdown of what I look at.
Yeah, the way that I would break it down if I were given a full macronutrient breakdown. Number one, the 1 gram per pound of body weight. I think the actual the true measure is 1 to 1.2 grams per pound of lean body mass. Now, obviously, that's a shit show to try and work out by yourself. So, it can be difficult. If you're a person that knows that information and knows how much lean body mass you have or how much body fat you have, you can work that out backwards based on, obviously, your total overall weight if you want to get into it. I think generally, what you're saying about the height thing, that would put me, if it was 1 gram, it would put me about 187 grams. So it works out. That works out for me. So what I would do is calculate the total overall calories that you're going to have based on whether you're in the deficit or whether you're in the surplus. You have that total for the protein. So, if it's 200 grams of protein, it's going to be 800 calories because they're 4 calories per gram. What I then do with the fat, I'll maybe do this calculation now so I don't fuck it up and I have the right numbers. So what I would do then is I would always go between 0.4 and 0.6 grams of fat per pound. So if I'm 220 pounds at the minute times, say, 0.5, it's going to give me 110. So that would be on the upper range. And then you multiply that by 9 because it's 9 calories per gram. And then the remainder is your carbohydrates. So that's where you make up the difference. So total calories minus the calories from protein minus the calories from fat are going to give you, a total amount of calories. And then you divide that by 4, and that's how many grams of carbs you would get. And that's the way that I would adjust it. One thing that I would note as well is, on the way up or on the way down, I would play about with that carb number if you are looking at the sort of specific macros, because it's the easiest one to sort of manipulate. And like I said at the start, protein and fats are essential. So, for example, if I obviously don't know because I just give you the numbers in terms of calories and protein, but this week, if I increase your calories by 100 calories, in my head, what I would think is that's 25 grams of carbs that you're going to add in. And I would recommend that you add those in somewhere around your workout, either before or after. Again, obviously it's totally entirely up to you, but that's how I would personally do it.
Yep, that makes sense. And so when we talk about foods, like someone might be thinking, well, how the hell do I get 150 grams of protein or 200 grams of protein? We hit on this a little bit on the last episode, but when you start to look at what we call whole foods, and yes, you can absolutely supplement with protein shakes, things to that effect, right? And there's certain times where protein shakes make a lot of sense. Like, for example, post-workout, getting easily digestible protein into your body is a great thing to maximize, the repair aspects of the damage that you do from weight training. So
I'm going to just say a protein shake and some form of cereal is the optimal post-workout meal. And correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody feel free to reach out to me and tell me any differently. But it's what I've had. I'm actually looking at a picture. There's a picture on the side of my screen here of me holding a box of Cocoa Pops. I know you don't have Cocoa Pops.
We have Cocoa Pops. What are you kidding? We have Cocoa Puffs.
But Cocoa Pops and Cocoa Puffs are different.
Cocoa Pops. Okay, I don't know what Cocoa Pops are. Yeah.
But basically, it's this is what I've had my entire training career as a post-workout has been a protein shake, and different amounts based on what I'm trying to achieve, anywhere from 60 grams to 250 grams of this incredibly delicious cereal. My thought process behind it is, number one, it's delicious, so it's going to get you through any workout because you're going to get it after. The reason that I would recommend easily digestible foods is because if you think of what happens whenever you're training, so say, for example, you're training legs, number one, you're not going to be in a position that you're going to want to sit down to a big meal of like chicken and potatoes or chicken and rice or whatever it is, because it would make me want to throw up. But if you imagine what you're doing whenever you're training, all the blood is flowing around the muscle groups that you've just trained. So there's no blood in your digestive system to actually digest the food properly. So something that's easier to digest is going to be optimal. What I would always recommend is, don't go down and don't get your meal straight after. Take some time to let your body sort of settle and get into that sort of rest and digest state. Have something that's easy to digest. So, a protein shake is already liquid. It's going to be easy for your body to process and digest. So there's no issues there. The carbohydrates that you get from the cereal is, it's as close to sugar and glucose as you're possibly going to get without eating sugar. And again, from a a lightness on your stomach. You know what I mean? It's a light meal. It's easy to eat. And then what I would say after that, about an hour after that, you would have your actual meal of chicken and potatoes, or chicken and rice, or prawns and rice, or whatever. I've been having if anybody's in the Discord server, I've been having that prawns, rice and pineapple meal, which is absolutely delicious. But I would have that about an hour after I have my protein shake and I have my Cocoa Pops. And again, I stand by it. Some sort of protein shake and some sort of cereal, optimal post-workout meal. Anybody who has anything different to say, I will fight them.
Well, I'm very similar. My vice or my reward is Lucky Charms. As a kid, like Lucky Charms were always the thing, and it was always something that I put myself away from because, it's like, oh, it's horrible for you. It's what's interesting, if you look at Lucky Charms versus the healthy brands of cereal, they're basically the same macronutrient breakdown for the most part. It just has some delicious marshmallows in it. So, so that's my post workout as well. So I'll do a bowl of cereal with Lucky Charms and protein shake on the side. I do my protein shake first, and then I have the Lucky Charms with milk. I use it's called Fairlife whole milk, less sugar, more protein. I think it's got 13 grams of protein per cup, so it's pretty nice. And I do that, and
mine together. I have my protein shake as
the
milk.
I can't do that. I don't know. I feel like it messes up the taste.
Well, I have chocolate protein and chocolate.
That makes sense.
Like Cocoa Pops, so it's like double chocolate.
Double chocolate. Yeah. See, I'm not a huge chocolate guy, to be honest with you. I never had a problem with chocolate. I'm not a big chocolate person, but the Cocoa Pebbles Dynamatized ISO 100 stuff is incredible from a protein shake perspective. But that's mine as well. And also think about protein from a whole foods perspective. How much does a whole chicken or a chicken breast happen? Was it 24 grams of protein?
Yeah, I would say if you're going obviously depends on the size of chicken breast, but if you're going like a regular size chicken breast that's like maybe 120 to 160 grams, you're probably talking 20 to 25 grams of protein.
Yeah, and then you take steak, for example. A 8-ounce filet, for example, has like 45 grams of protein in it. A 10-ounce has like 70. A 12-ounce has 90. If you can eat that much meat. But pork loin, also fantastic from a protein perspective. Eggs, obviously, from a protein perspective. Be careful on the eggs because they do have a ton of fat in there. So if you're looking at your macronutrient breakdowns, it may bust you a little bit. Then you could do egg whites more so from that side. So protein from those types of sources are fantastic. And what I typically do is I'll also eat things like Greek yogurt, for example. Greek yogurt, I use the Light and Fit. It's 80 grams of protein, 80 grams of calories, or 80 calories to 12 grams of protein. So I'll usually, eat 2 of those, which is 24 grams of protein on that. That's a whole chicken, basically. You just eating 2 things of, and it's a little, nice and sweet. So it's, gets you on the sweet tooth side of the house. Cottage cheese. Cottage cheese is actually made up of what's called casein, which is a slower digesting protein. So cottage cheese at night is really good because your body digests it at a slower process. And the theory behind that, which is not proven, is that it allows protein throughout the night as your body's repairing to allow for better recovery and things to that effect. So when we talk about getting protein in, I mean, if I want to, I have no issues getting 300 grams of protein a day without supplementation of protein shakes. As a maybe I'll do 1 protein shake per day is typically where I'm at. I usually do 2 scoops for 50 grams of protein right after a workout, just to ensure I have enough protein there. But I typically don't supplement anything else throughout the day, just based on the whole foods that I eat.
Except the 9 protein bars that you eat per day. No, I think that's a good point to touch on because 99% of people struggle with hitting their protein target. Like that is the people I can't hit my protein target. I don't know how to do it. And I think if we break it, when I break it down, it usually makes a bit more sense to them. So say, for example, you have to hit, we'll talk 180 grams. Okay. I would always say, if you need to supplement with a protein shake, have a protein shake. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the end of the world. It's easy. It'll tick the box. It'll get you over the line in terms of your protein. Like, if you're saying you can't get 180 grams of protein and you're eating 150 grams, have a protein shake. You're there. Easy. Done. So what I would say is you look at that 180 grams, you say you have a protein shake, it takes 30 grams off. What I would say to that is that's going to take you then to 150 grams you have left. The 150 grams in, you just need to look at your meals and split it across your meals. Now, I would tend to favor 3 meals and a snack as a very baseline. Like, I would eat maybe more meals than that, but whatever way you want to break it down. 3 meals and a snack for me would be breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then as Dave said, either a protein bar or some Greek yogurt. So you have the 180 grams total. You have 30 grams taken away from your protein shake, so you're left with 150 grams. And then you have 4 meals to split that over. So 150 divided by 4 is going to give you like 37.5 grams per meal, which is easy. So, yeah. So, for example, say 3 eggs in the morning, and I'm just talking off the top of my head, so please don't anybody come to me saying those numbers were wrong. You got it wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Say in the morning you want to have 3 eggs, 3 whole eggs, and 100 grams of egg whites. That's probably going to hit the 35 gram mark. If you have a bagel with that, there's 10 grams of protein in a bagel. Now, it's not the primary macronutrient, but it will count towards your protein goal. Then you're going to have, say, for example, a chicken breast. That's going to give you 25 grams of protein. Say you have 1.5 chicken breasts, that'll take you over to the 30. And then in the evening, if you want to have, prawns, which are a good, or shrimp, sorry, a good lean protein source, or some sort of white fish, or if you want to go down like extra lean mince or turkey mince or something like that. If you have 250 grams of extra lean mince or turkey mince, that's going to take you 45 grams of protein. So if you break it down that way, and then, your snack, that's going to be, Greek yogurt's going to give you 20 grams, protein bar is going to give you 20 grams. The tip about the scoop of whey in your Greek yogurt as well, put it in the freezer. It's like protein, Greek yogurt, freezer, ice cream deliciousness. It's good if you throw actually some fruit in it as well. But anyway, different story for a different time. So yeah, that'll break it down. So eggs in the morning, 3 whole eggs, 100 grams of egg whites. Then you're going to have, 1.5 chicken breasts in the afternoon. Have your whey protein shake after you train. If you're training, have it whatever way you want it. And then in the evening, you're going to have, say, some sort of beef or some sort of turkey or fish or whatever it is. And that's going to give you a varied range of protein sources as well. So you're not always getting it from the same source, because each protein source is built up with a different amino acid profile. So it ticks all the boxes in my eyes. Yeah,
no, that's a great breakdown of everything that you could potentially do. And you think about it, the way Ben broke it down, one protein shake, and then spacing it out between 4 meals and trying to get anywhere between 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. That's easy. Throw some broccoli, throw some Brussels sprouts, asparagus is high in protein, spinach, from a veggie perspective. Those all can add up into those grams of protein that you have from veggies as well. So, and obviously, if you're vegetarian, there are plant-based protein shakes and supplements and things to that effect that might spike that up a little bit as well. It is a little bit more difficult, obviously, on plant-based diets, but it is absolutely still maintainable. I
would say on this leads into the conversation probably about supplements at a different time, but obviously there's big chat around BCAAs and EAAs. The only time that I would straight off the bat recommend either, number one, I would recommend EAA over BCAAs because they're infinitely better. But if you have a plant-based, or, if it's vegetarian or vegan or even pescatarian, that you're not getting a lot of varied protein sources from like whole food sources, supplementing with EAAs will definitely do you favors, because EAAs by name are essential amino acids. So it'll tick the boxes that you're not potentially getting from eating meat or whatever it is. I'm not against it. I mean, feel free to do you, but that's the only time that I would recommend them straight off the bat.
Yeah, and my understanding of essential amino acids and branched chain amino acids, or BCAAs, is that essential amino acids also incorporate branched chain amino acids as well. What it is basically when your body goes and breaks down protein via proteins to amino acids in order to repair the muscles, muscle damage, or to instruct your muscles to build, to grow larger or to get stronger. Those amino acids are essentially what's the byproduct of that protein breakdown. So when you're ingesting essential amino acids, your body's it's basically its rawest form as possible that can be used immediately to repair or to build muscle in your body. So if you're not getting enough protein, supplementing that with essential amino acids and things like that can absolutely make it better for you in order to ensure recovery, muscles, strength, growth, all that good stuff for protein synthesis.
Yeah, I think we will knock it in the head with the supplements chat there, because we will go down a rabbit hole. But I just wanted to.
I was showing our pills per day over the weekend, and it's ridiculous. There's no reason to do what we're doing, but just experimenting and playing around with obviously over the counter. Things that probably make zero difference whatsoever, but at least we're trying them out. So there is some science behind it.
I have 2 schools of thought on it. Number one, it's that pyramid. So supplements are on the top, and I feel like, we both tick every other box on the way up. So it's fine for us to be like, right, we want to optimize this. We want to make it that 1% better. Whether it's actually working or whether it's a placebo, we will never know. And actually, a good point, I don't know if we've mentioned this in the podcast, but something that Jason put back to me, the way that he would sort of test out supplements is he would get whatever it is, say, for example, sleep, superhuman sleep?
The superhuman sleep,
Alpha.
Yep.
Yeah, so he got it recently, and he did the full tub, which I think was maybe 30 days. And the way that he tests out whether he finds it effective or not is once he finishes the initial tub, he then stops taking it and see if he feels any different. Now, with that, he did say that he felt the difference, so he went back on it. And I think that's a good way to do it, rather than, oh, now I'm taking this, I automatically feel better. It's sort of the opposite, where you sort of take it away, rather than, and I'm the same. If you recommended something to me, it would be ordered straight away, and I would just start taking it because you've listened to a podcast and someone recommended like that. So the Huberman, the sleep one.
Yeah.
But so
magnesium.
The supplements one will be a totally different story.
Yeah, and that's the important part too. Is like nutrition and getting out and putting in the work in the gym are the two most important things you could potentially do, right? Supplements are not going to give you a clear edge in any way, shape, or form. When you're already doing the nutrition, you're getting the macronutrient breakdowns, you're understanding your body, and you're going in, you're putting the work at the gym, the rest will follow. And supplements are something that are like, hey, maybe I'm deficient in a certain area because of my type of diet, the type of food that I eat, or you're trying to optimize certain things in your life based off of that. Like, one of the supplements I take is magnesium, and there's a certain type of magnesium. I think it's like L-acetal or citrate or something like that. Anyways, it gets past what's called.
We'll put the link in the description because we don't know the name.
It's called neuromag magnesium, but the biggest part about it is magnesium is one of the critical components for your neurons to fire in your brain for, brain activity and things of that effect and regeneration and everything else. And so this type of magnesium basically bypasses what's called the blood-brain barrier, which allows your brain to actually absorb that magnesium. And there's a lot of studies that show, magnesium at night is helpful for sleep. So, I don't have any struggles with sleep, but I also want to maximize my sleep, and my recovery. So, I take that at night with some other things. I can, if you go to our Discord server, which by the way, we got to talk about Discord server when we close. But if you just do a, !Dave, it'll show you all of the supplements that I'm on. If you do !Ben, it'll show you all the supplements that Ben is on. And, again, it's just a reference point for what you need. And it's magnesium L-threonate is the one I was talking about before for the blood-brain barrier bypass. But I also take, at night, I do nitric oxide boost. There's some studies where your nitric oxide levels in your body are the lowest at night. Again, we're going to go down a rabbit hole.
You're in a supplements rabbit hole. So, this is the supplements rabbit hole. Avoid
detour.
So. Yeah, we'll get back to we're both very passionate about supplements, and to sort of just to finish up on that, it's like, okay, yeah, you're talking about sleep. Your sleep is fine, but how can we make it better? How can we optimize it? Because that, to me, at the stage that I'm at in my life and in my training and everything that I do, it's how can I make what I'm doing more efficient and better for whether it's sleep, recovery, work, training, whatever. So yeah, and maybe I'm going to say maybe we'll do the supplement ones next, but we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that off air because I think we've been making too many open promises on air, and then we're like, oh, shit, we said that. So yes, anyway, back to the nutrition side of things. So we touched on how to hit your protein goal, how to adjust. We've touched on that. I think one thing, again, around the top of the pyramid, the way I would sort of look at it would be energy balance at the very bottom, right? So that's your calories.
Yes,
okay?
I'm glad you brought this up.
I'm
glad you brought this up because how you feel is the most important, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're on a diet and you're on keto and you have the keto flu and you feel like shit all day long, is that diet worth it? No,
absolutely
not.
Some of I'm gonna just point this out, and I'm not in any way putting anybody down. I'm in a couple of keto Facebook groups just to sort of see what actually goes on, and some of the shit that they have to deal with, go through, post about, it just does not make any sense to me. Just you mentioned keto flu, I've seen a number of people pointing out different things that they have to do. I'm like, why are you doing this? It doesn't need to be this difficult. But anyway, energy balance, over to you. Sorry, rabbit hole again.
No, it's this is all about feeling good about yourself and feeling great about yourself, right? If you're, why do this in the first place, right? Why am I doing this? Well, at the end of the day, body perception for me is one thing. Confidence, I sent a message to the BC fam. I got to speak at a conference called GERCON this weekend, and it was the first time I'd really been up on stage because of the whole pandemic and COVID. And when I went up on stage, and this is it's not an ego thing at all. This is absolutely about how I feel about myself, right? I walked up on stage, and I felt great about myself. I felt strong. I felt confident. And, it was a different feeling getting in front of people than I did a year or two ago. I would always be self-conscious about my weight and how all this other stuff about me. And I felt fantastic up on stage. I felt energetic. I felt clear. My mental clarity was clear. I felt like I could complete sentences faster and talk about things and make jokes faster, make eye contact, all of these things all at once. My brain is optimized, but my body was also optimized as well. And so when you're on these types of journeys, how you feel day to day is extremely important. That's why when we talk about carbohydrates, carbohydrates are your energy source. So you want to have carbohydrates. You want to eat carbs. You want to, stack carbs within your macronutrient, countdown, because that's going to provide the energy for you, especially if you're putting in intense workouts or things to that effect, to allow you to continue to have that steady balance throughout the day. That's why when people are eating unhealthy and things to that effect, they just sit there and they pound coffee all day to keep them awake and alert. You don't need that. I mean, granted, caffeine is an amazing stimulant. We're big fans of caffeine, but in its own sense, right? We use caffeine in a way to where it's our pre-workout, to where it gets us a little bit more amped up to be able to perform maybe a little bit better, maybe nominally 3% or 2% or 1% or 0.5% better, but it makes us feel good, right? But when you're not eating appropriately, you have that brain fog. You need the continual thing of caffeine to increase the dopamine production or to block sleepiness, to get you ramped up. That's where that comes into play. So when you're doing this, play around with the fat to carb pieces. You want to get the protein in. Protein is immutable. It's not something you want to change. You want to get that amount of protein in order to ensure that you can maximize your muscle growth. But the carbs and fats are ones you can definitely play around with. And I find that for me, more carbs the better, less fat the better.
Yeah, that's sort of why I give free rein at the start as well. Like, that's why I just give the calorie goal and the protein goal, because people have ways that they enjoy and prefer eating, and I will let them do that, because the whole process needs to be enjoyable. You don't want to feel like it's a chore. So it allows me to learn, because I can get to look at the numbers of their fat and carbs breakdown as we go through, but also it gets them to probably understand that they maybe just prefer to eat carbs, they maybe prefer to eat fats. People just operate differently based on what they like. I know that Matt that I've spoken about, he prefers higher fats, and I'm like, right, well, you're crazy, but whatever turns you on. And I think it's about understanding that and knowing it yourself. But the flip side of that as well is, it gives me somewhere to go, that if we start to hit a plateau and look at, okay, why we're not progressing, then I can start to break down your fats and carbs that's a bit more. But what you're saying about the confidence and the feeling good thing, I laugh sometimes whenever I'm on initial like coaching calls with people. I'm like, tell me what it is you want, and they're like shy about it, and I'm like, tell me why it is you're here. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't want to be too vain, but I'm like, we're here for vanity. We're here because you want to look and feel good. Like, there's no, but okay, yes, we want to be healthier, but ultimately it comes down to looking and feeling better. So, there's no need to bullshit me on that one. And I think, to get into the positive swing of that, when you look better, you feel better, you have more confidence. And like you're saying, you can deliver better, which gives the people in the audience, they get more value from what you're doing. It's beneficial for everybody. Like, I'm sold. I'm in.
Just today I went to go to a store to go get my wife a birthday present. I went to a jewelry store. I walked into the jewelry store, and the guy had not seen me for a little bit over a year. Well, first of all, I don't go to jewelry stores very often. It's not like my place to hang out. But the guy walked in and he's like, "Hey, Dave, wow, you've been hitting the gym. You look great, man." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." That's the type of stuff. Like, all that work and effort is noticeable. And, I feel great about myself. I feel strong. I feel confident. All of those things come along with that. And that's the thing that we're ultimately striving for, right? Is to maximize our longevity, our health for our kids and our family, and feeling great while we go and do it. Just because we get older doesn't mean that we have to succumb to age. There's so many things out there, that we can do to be anti-aging, I guess is the best way of putting it, right? To not succumb to being old and weak and things to that effect. So, nutrition definitely comes down to one of those big aspects of that, right? Of really trying to home in on what works best for your body, and making sure you stick to it and putting that framework in place to allow you to stick to it. And I think that's where, again, most people fail in those diets is, we go to this diet and, we're done with this diet and all of a sudden we're back to our normal selves and we have no structure, program, and boom, all of a sudden it's an issue. Counting calories, understanding your total daily energy expenditures, putting yourself in a deficit or surplus, getting your macronutrients down. Those are all key aspects, I think, to really, being successful long-term with this whole strategy.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I think we nailed it.
The thing I'll say
next.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, next we're going to talk about body. That will go a lot more in detail into probably the training aspect of it, but even deeper in terms of digestion, and we'll talk about sleep and things like that. So I think there'll be a couple of subsections that we can talk in terms of body that we'll deal with next. Yeah, and just want to say we released our Discord server this week, which should be next week for the folks listening on the podcast. If you're interested, go to wehack.health. There's a link on there to our Discord server. There actually isn't right now, so I'm going to go add that as soon as we get off this podcast, but it'll be there by the time we get it. We started a great Discord server. It's amazing. Thousands of people have joined. So many great interactions and discussions. People, we share our struggles, we brag about our workouts, ask questions about nutrition. There's an AMA section for Ben. So there's literally anything that, we have a book club on there, recipes to share, gym equipment, all these different areas, to help you be successful in this as you start to grow your journey. So join this community. It's great. Some fantastic people there really helping each other out, picking each other up. I think I'm getting the hang of this. I'm impressed, by the way. Dude, one thing I want to say that I was really impressed with that blew my mind, is that, we're obviously in a different time zone, and I had woken up and someone had asked about adding 2 different channels, and you had figured it out and added 2 channels with the right permissions. I was really impressed about that. I was like, he didn't allow it to hackers that completely take over our server. It was actually done right, and you nailed it. It was great. Yeah, learn from the best. Join our Discord server. The one last thing I want to share is, it's just a funny sidebar. It has nothing to do with fitness at all, but I have one of these. I was outside in the gym working out over the weekend, and this was Saturday, and I have this robot that goes and cleans my house. One of those little vacuum robots or whatever. And one of my dogs had pooped in the house, and the robot grabbed the poop. And I came back after my workout, and it had been going for about an hour and a half or so, and it was a disaster. So it was a literal shit show. It was a total shit show. It was so bad. Think about the worst case scenario and then amplify that by 10. That's where I literally took the freaking robot and I threw it in the trash. There's no cleaning this thing out. It was caked in poop. And anyways, just be careful. This is my tip of the day: is be careful not to let your robot go unabated in your house while you're going and getting your lift in, because it can be disastrous. Yeah, watch your robots. Well, on that note, hey, I thought it was a great podcast, man. If you have any questions, just let us know. Shoot us a note. Join our Discord server. The link's on the wehack.health website. Will be shortly. And really appreciate everybody joining. That was a great one, and we can't wait to the following week. Yeah, cool. Thanks, and I'll chat to you soon.